When you have a disagreement with your spouse, with your neighbor, you need to care about each other, and you need to express that you care about each other so that each one knows, we may disagree about this, but I know that he cares for me.
So is that what you do in your concerts, is tell a story and then play music behind it?
I needed a way to explain what I was doing, both for myself and for other people. And I thought, well, if I write a book, then I can read the book. It's short enough that I can read it in a concert and then perform it and then sell the book afterward. That book is about a song that I co-wrote with a man who died 6 years before I was born.
Whoa, let's get it. Whoa, clear out the room, I'm coming through, they wanna see what I'm about.
And that's the name, you know?
I'm on a paper route. Extra,
You gonna hook me up? Okay.
Today's trying to tap it. I put commas over bullshit. Yeah, I put that on mamas. Hey, they trying to block all my blessings.
Hey guys, welcome back to the People of Oklahoma podcast, where I talk to interesting people, and someone that I have on the podcast today is very interesting. He is a local composer and concert pianist. Yes, we got Barron Ryan on the podcast. Barron.
Thank you.
And Barron, I want to talk about this right off the bat. So when people watch and they do come on my podcast,
Yes.
You got tight in on me, Cassidy. You got tight. Bring me a gift. This is awesome. This is a book written by Barron Ryan. Who did the illustration?
Callie Ward.
Is she local too?
No, she's in Idaho.
Okay,
that's a different story, but yeah.
And he signed it. And just look at these illustrations. So Barron, thank you.
My pleasure.
Dude, this is awesome. Where can people get this at?
They can get it at book.barronryan.com. And they can also get it locally. I should have started with that at Fleming's Comfort Footwear and at Magic City Books.
Well, since we brought that up, and this was not by accident, or actually it was by accident because you just brought it up. Cam, can we see your shoes real quick?
Absolutely. I'm not that flexible. So I'll put them up here for the viewers. Tulsa flag shoe, available exclusively at Fleming's Comfort Footwear.
Yes, exclusively. So, Fleming's?
Yes.
Fleming? All right, you can go ahead and cut my check, put it in the mail for me for a free advertisement. I'm just kidding. So actually, Barron, what is this book about? Can we talk about
that? Book is about a song that I co-wrote with a man who died 6 years before I was born.
Oh.
So in 2017, I became acquainted with a woman named Linda, who came to one of my concerts and was enthused by my music, and she invited me to play at her home. And over the course of a couple of years, we became fairly close friends. And I knew that she had been married and that her husband had been deceased for quite some time. That's what I had intuited from our discussions and other things, but she had never brought him up to me until a couple years in. She said, "Did I ever tell you that my husband was a songwriter?" And I said, "No, you didn't tell me that." And she told me that he was a professional songwriter. Charlie Pride was a Grammy-winning country singer, and he wrote a couple of songs, 3 songs that Charlie recorded, and he shopped other songs as well. But the thing was, he has cystic fibrosis. And so he knew from the time he was a boy that he wouldn't live as long as most. But he met Linda at the University of Tulsa, and they got married anyway. And knowing that he was not going to live out marriage as long as most people would hope to. And so he wrote songs, and then when he died, he left behind this box of lyrics, of song lyrics, that didn't have, some of the lyrics had music to them and some of them didn't. And so Linda, she said, when she brought this up to me, she said that Don, her husband, had left behind this music, and she said, "I wonder if you'd want to take a look at it." And I said, "Of course I do." And after a few months of me gently cajoling and insisting that if she wanted me to take a look, then I wanted to look at it, she finally gave it to me. I didn't realize that she hadn't looked in that box for 40 years.
Oh.
Because she did immediately after his funeral, and just briefly, and realized I can't do this right now. And so it was the 40th anniversary of his death that brought this to mind, because on his little deathbed, he said, "Well, what's going to happen to my music?" And she said, "I'll do with it what I can." And so 40 years later, this was on her mind because she hadn't opened the box. And so she brought it up to me and gave me this box several months later. And so I was looking for a song. I was looking for lyrics to a song that Don wrote about his wife, Linda. I didn't want there to be music already, because then I didn't have much to do in the story.
Right.
And And so I found lyrics to a song called Honey, If It Wasn't For You that I set to music and made into a song. So this book is the story of that song. It's the story of Don's life. It's the story of Don and Linda's life together. It's the story of Linda's and my friendship. And then it's the story of how all three of us came into interaction, how our stories meshed together in the form of this song. And then in the book is a link to the song itself.
Oh, man. So how long did it take you when you got the lyrics to the song to compose music behind it? How long did it take you?
It was pretty quick.
That's the funny thing about like that I hear about songwriters or people that produce music is sometimes it doesn't take them that long to write, like, you know, when they have it in their head or whatever.
Yes. I view writing music and most creative endeavors like putting together a jigsaw puzzle, in that the corners and the edge pieces are your guideposts, and those come quickly. So the basic idea for the melody came pretty quickly, and then once you get the edges, then it becomes more of a matter of, okay, well, how do I put these words to these notes? Because you may write one melody for the first verse, but then the second verse, the cadence of the lyrics is a little bit different. So you have to change it. You have to change the second verse a little bit so that it stays interesting. You have to do little things that, okay, well, I have to figure out how this piece fits, and that takes a little bit more effort. But the initial inspiration is generally pretty quick for me.
So do you start with lyrics, or do you start with like the melody, or not the melody, but what do you call so you have the lyrics and then you have
melody? Yeah.
Melody? Okay. So what do you start with first?
Well, in this case, I started with the lyrics because those were, in fact, I'm not much of a lyricist myself. So the other music that I've written, at least for public consumption, is instrumental. So usually it's, it varies what I start with then. But in this case, the lyrics were there first. He did have chords with the lyrics too, but I had no idea what the melody he was thinking of was. So I didn't really hold myself to the chords that he had written. I did use one that I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. He used a chord. It's kind of he was a country music writer mostly. And so the country, I don't sing country, but it's country-ish is what I would call it. So
what music do you listen to?
Music that I find intriguing, which can be a number of different things, but it tends to be
Taylor Swift.
Absolutely.
Really?
No.
I was say, oh, sweet.
It tends to be instrumental. It tends to be classical or jazz or funk. I like music that toes the line. My tagline is classic meets cool.
Yeah.
And I like the finding the middle ground between classic and cool, between adventurous and comfort, between novelty and familiarity. So I like music that sounds new but feels familiar, and that's the kind of music that I try to make too.
So what is familiar?
Well, it depends on who you are, for one thing. So when you're writing music, I want to have my audience in mind.
Right.
So I'm often writing for American audiences, so I can tend to assume that they've heard some of the same music that I have.
Yeah.
So they've probably heard, for instance, I wrote a dance suite, which is Bach wrote dance suites, and that's part of where I got the inspiration. But my dances are not jigs or gavottes or what you might hear in Bach, but my dances are a 1980s piano pop tune like Billy Joel or Elton John, or it's a country waltz, or it's a calypso because my dad's from Trinidad. And so I write music with, so I write, let's say the 80s pop tune. I write music that sounds like that style, but then that inserts some surprises as well, and things that I think are interesting, and that I hope that the listener will think is interesting too.
And you brought up your dad from Trinidad. Did he grow up in Tulsa too? Or
no, he came to Tulsa for college.
Okay, so he was from Trinidad,
yes,
and then moved to Tulsa and went to the University of Tulsa, or
ORU. Yeah, he did go to TU for his master's, but he came in the first place for.
So did he come over? What was his major?
It was music education.
Oh, okay.
There wasn't he might have picked piano performance if they had it, but I don't think they had.
So did he play piano growing up?
Yes, he grew up in church, and his dad was a pastor. And when you grow up especially when you're a pastor's kid, and the church isn't big enough to necessarily have professional musicians in it already, or then you get employed. If you have an interest, you get employed. So he grew up playing piano, and studied it as well, but really got more serious about academic rigor when he came here.
Okay, and so then he already played piano at that point, came over here to ORU,
Right.
studied music, and
Right.
you said he met your mom there too,
Right, exactly. Yeah, they were both music education majors. So both my parents are musical. My mom's not a professional musician, but she had if we think of my parents as classic and cool of my tagline, then my dad's the classic one. He's the more formally trained and was my teacher. And then my mom was the one who would teach my sisters and me folk songs, and we would go out to nursing homes around Tulsa and retirement homes and sing them, and she would play the piano for us.
That's so cool. And I want to touch on I want to dig more deeper into that here in just a second. But when you were like growing up, like did you feel like you had to do music? Because when I think because I see it like when I hear stories about kids growing up, you know, and their parents are professionals in a certain aspect, sometimes they have everything to do with it or they have nothing to do with it at all. Like, and also I think of the teacher and the student of like, you ever watched the movie Whiplash?
No, I've heard about I need to see it.
On the drums.
Yes.
And the teacher's like, you know, was your dad
the proverbial piano teacher with a ruler slapping your fingers?
Yeah. Was that your dad, or was your dad just like, you can do whatever you want? Like, I'm just here to help you and guide you.
It was a little of both. Not that he wasn't punitive like that. Right. I don't think I would have had the choice of learning at least starting music, but I wanted to do it anyway. So I grew up watching him play, and we had good family friends who would take us to concerts around at the PAC especially, and I thought, well, I want to do this. I started I saw the show Stomp, which is a stage production they play anything but musical instruments. They make music out of anything but musical instruments.
That's a Broadway musical, right? Stomp?
Well, it's that category, but it's not. It's completely nonverbal. They make music with brooms, with street signs.
Yes.
Yeah. And you can imagine as a 3-year-old, maybe 4-year-old kid, I was enamored. I thought, what is this?
I didn't know that show was that old.
Yeah. Oh, hold on. I think I may have lied to you because I think I looked it up. It's not quite that old. I saw it when I was very young. I thought that I was 3 or 4, but then I looked up. They may have been when I was 7.
I didn't call you out on your age if you didn't know that at all. I mean, that wasn't my intent. I am younger, by the way. But
okay, take it easy.
Take it easy. I still want some of those shoes, by the way, please.
Well, we'll see how much you insult me.
But no, yeah, because I saw that show too. So another reason why I wanted you on the podcast is I'm actually really fascinated in performing arts. Even though I never did it growing up, I'm just really like fascinated in that industry. So when you said you were gonna come on, I was like, yes.
Yeah.
And I saw the show Stomp at the Tulsa PAC with the brooms, and I loved it. It's
so good. I could see it every time that it comes, and it wouldn't be enough.
Yeah.
So I wanted to play. So when I started piano lessons when I was 4, my dad said that he wanted to teach me something useful because I was already playing the piano. I just wasn't making music with it. And there were times when I didn't want to practice, and then I had to be made to practice. But I still wanted to do it. What I really loved to do is perform. I didn't like practicing, but I love to perform. So
you like athletes, you know, I don't like to practice. I like to go play the game, basketball or whatever.
Right, but to play the game better, you have to practice. So you figure that out, and then think, okay, well, I guess I can muscle up the courage.
Do you have any siblings?
I have 2 older sisters.
Did they play?
Yes, they both played. My eldest sister played violin more than piano. The other sister also plays piano, and they don't like to practice as much as I do, so they didn't take it into their full-time careers, but we're all very musical.
All right, so you don't have to answer this.
Okay.
But with all siblings, there's usually one that works the hardest. There's one that's just more gifted and talented just naturally at it, and then so who is the more gifted one out of the group?
I don't know. We're all gifted in different ways.
That answers my question.
Yeah.
The person that says that is usually the person that's more gifted. All right, you answer that question. But who's oh yeah, you told me not to offend you anymore.
That wasn't a defense. That was a compliment. I'll take it.
But what did you take a hold of it probably the most and practice them? Are they doing it still? Are they doing it at a professional level? Or
my eldest sister, yeah, I mean, so in different ways. Jillian, my eldest sister, plays semi-professionally handful of times a year in a string quartet or in a church Christmas concert or something.
Yeah.
My other sister, Laurel, is actually a professional. She doesn't do it for a living, but she gets paid to travel the country and teach swing dance, Lindy Hop specifically.
Oh.
And so she's not making music, but she's dancing to music.
Oh,
and then she also MCs and such. So yeah, we're all still involved, even though it's in different ways.
Oh man, I bet your dad and mom were so happy about you guys staying in kind of the industry.
Yeah, yeah. Family gatherings are always eventful.
Yeah. Does your sister break out the violin? Your mom start singing? You start playing piano?
It's more like things will like the dishwasher will be running and it will have a tone to it, kind of like. I'm not sure, that may be a fan of the light, and so then we'll start harmonizing with the dishwasher.
You guys break out.
Yeah, yeah.
Mom stops banging on a pan. You start with the broom, and
Mom's usually more just laughing in disbelief.
Okay, so she has nothing to do. She's like,
she enjoys it,
yeah.
But she's less. She's kooky in different ways than my sisters and I are.
Yeah. But your mom went to nursing homes and started singing to nursing homes?
She would take us, the three of us, because we were homeschooled for much of elementary school. Well, for all of our elementary schools. And so we would learn to sing songs like Bingo was my solo, and other folk songs. And she would take us to nursing homes and we would sing and she would play the piano.
Oh. Was that kind of cool? How old were you when you started doing that?
Oh, probably 4, 5. Yeah, something like that.
Man,
pretty young.
So having an audience at 4, was that pretty cool?
Oh yeah, I loved it. We would go to all these different performances. I would see my dad playing concerts, and so I knew what the format was for a concert. So I started putting on my own house concerts when I was 6. We have programs that are written with crayon on construction paper. Maybe it was permanent marker. Maybe it was both. Of my concert program. So and there were 2 halves. There was an intermission. So I'd play the piano in the first half, and I wrote out the Wild Horseman, and then Spinning Song, and then intermission, and more. And I would demonstrate. I also played drums. I would demonstrate my percussion instruments, and when my dad would play at churches around the area, there would be refreshments. And so if it were an easy evening concert on a Sunday, you'd have desserts, refreshments afterwards. So I would have refreshments after my concerts.
What did you do during intermission? Did you just go back to your room and hang out?
That's a good question. I don't remember. I don't think there were.
Work the concessions.
No, there were wardrobe changes.
Wardrobe changes. Okay.
No, I don't think I had that in my quiver at that point. I don't remember what I would do during intermission. I think, but it was official. I handed out tickets, and I was the usher, and I also took my dad's clamp light from the garage, and I would use that as my spotlight, clamped onto my mother's coffee table.
Wow.
So this began very young.
So did you ever think about doing something different?
Yes. Yeah. I went to ORU Math and Science Camp in 8th grade, and they talked about engineering, and we did a rocket competition, and that was who could get the rocket closest to the target. And they talked about how much money engineers made, and I thought, I'm going to be an engineer. And then I took AP Physics, and I thought, okay, well, maybe it's
all about rockets.
Yeah, maybe this isn't for me. And I thought, well, what else am I good at? And music was the first answer.
Yeah.
So junior year of high school is when I thought, I'll make this a vocation and not just an interest.
Because you were homeschooled all the way up to
6th grade. I went to Holland Hall in 6th grade. I went out to public school in 3rd grade just for 1 year, and then I came back, and then out to Holland Hall for good in 6th grade.
So what was it your decision to go back into or homeschool after trying, or was it your parents?
It was so my sister Laurel she and my mom were butting heads at home.
Yeah,
and so my parents wanted to send her out to school and didn't want her to feel left out. And so she said that's why they sent me in 3rd grade too. But
Laurel older, so she was probably 12, 13.
Yeah, she was in 5th grade, so probably 11.
Yeah, that's my daughter. She's 12, and we're starting to butt heads a little bit, and so I think it's just that age.
Yeah, could have been.
They're starting to get their own minds. Bodies are changing. Think they know everything. So I understand.
But she's living under your roof still. So
yeah.
So I went out at the same time, and then neither of us liked it, so we came back. And then my parents were looking for a school for my eldest sister Jillian, and I saw the basketball court at Holland Hall, and I thought, can I go here too? So thankfully it worked out that we could all go at the same time.
So were you an athlete too? Did you play sports?
Yeah, a little bit. I don't, both athletics and music requires discipline and not punishment exactly, but it's not pleasant.
Yeah.
To practice is not always pleasant. It requires certain mental acuity and patience and discipline. But I don't, in athletics, you have to punish your body physically. And I don't really like to do that. When you're running sprints, I'm like, this is the worst. Yeah. So I liked it, but I didn't like the process enough to actually do it. And it's competes with time with practicing music too. So I really like sports, and I wish that I could play more, but I can't endanger my hands and my physical health.
Right. That's how you make money.
Right. So yeah, just somewhat of an athlete, but not very seriously. I didn't letter in any sports.
Yeah. But you played a little bit in high school though?
Yeah, I played basketball. I played a little tennis. You had in Holland Hall, you have to play sports. Yeah, one competitive and at least at that point. So
how was it going to Holland Hall? Did you like it?
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah.
I liked it. It was, I didn't know much different. It was relatively small, as opposed to say Jenks or Union or some school like that. And they had robust arts options. So I was in the choir, and I was in jazz band and show choir and jazz combo, and I was the captain of the drum line, such as it was in sophomore year. We started a drum line, and none of us knew what we were doing. So,
You guys
were
just like,
yeah. Well, the band director led it, but so it was school sanctioned. But still, none of us knew what we were doing, and we didn't have an instructor. So I just watched a lot of videos on Vic Firth, which is a stick company. YouTube wasn't a thing yet, and so I just found drumline videos online. And
I watched Drumline the movie. You remember that with Nick Cage?
Yeah.
That was sick.
It was sick.
That was awesome.
Drumlines in general are sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love drumlines.
Man, I always wanted to go to that. What's the school that he went to?
I don't know. Was it real? An HBCU?
Yeah. Was it? Oh, is it not real?
Oh, I don't.
Oh, okay.
It's been years.
I mean, I just like how they dance and the music.
I hear a snort from behind the camera.
What?
No. We'll find out if it's real after.
It probably is. Yeah, look it up.
If the school from Drumline is real. Is that what you're wondering?
Yeah.
Certainly the type of school is real. At HBCU, where they have a, yeah.
Did you ever want to go to HBCU?
I didn't consider it, really. I got a scholarship to OU, and I wanted to stay close to home. I was playing drums in my dad's jazz trio, and I wanted to work and come back home, which didn't end up happening very much. I didn't want to come back, but I had the scholarship, and they had a music program, so I thought, this is good enough for me.
Oh, so you went to OU?
Yes.
You went to OU?
Yes.
And then, so did they have like a competitive concert piano thing?
Well, it's not. I mean, yes, they do. There's a program. There are multiple professors who are all very good. And you mean competitive as in competitive with other schools?
Yeah.
It's not renowned.
Like marching bands, they have those. Right? I mean,
competitions.
I know in high school.
Yes.
Do,
I'm not sure that they do in colleges, but certainly in piano, it's different. You don't have piano bands, or generally just the one piano. So you may compete in competitions as a pianist with other pianists, but generally not representing your school. Mm-hmm. OU is known more for its piano education program than it is for its performance program. I wasn't thinking, I'm gonna be very ambitious and go to the best possible school. Not that OU isn't good. It's just that I got a scholarship, and I seemed good enough, and so I thought, okay, cool, this is fine with me.
Yeah. So were you always planning on creating your own music, or were you planning on teaching, or did you not really know at that time?
I didn't really know. Yeah. I now I have a mission statement. I've put it to words, but for a while I didn't really know how to articulate what I was trying to do. My thought is I want to play music that I think is interesting, that will connect with any listener. Mm-hmm. Now the words that I put it to, and even not necessarily just music, but my mission statement as an artist is to discover and present the beauty that I'm uniquely positioned for. And
say that one more time?
Sure. My mission is to discover and present the beauty I'm uniquely positioned for.
Okay.
And I think of beauty as really one of my favorite quotes is, beauty is never necessary, functional, or useful. And when expecting someone we love, We put a beautiful tablecloth on the table and decorate it with candles and flowers. We do all this not out of necessity, but out of love.
Yeah, I saw that quote. You put it in when we're emailing back and forth. What do you take out of that? Because I was like literally on the ride here the whole entire time on the ride here. I kept on reading that quote. And I'm like, I'm trying to get the deeper meaning behind it. What do you take out of that?
So in terms of my work, I want people who hear me or who read the book to feel love. That's my goal. And that can come in so many different ways. It can come in the form of music. It can come in the form of a beautiful story. It comes in the form of an assurance that someone else cares about you. That's one definition of what love is. And it's easier to see in a personal setting when, okay, I want to show someone I love that person. So you give a gift that's unique. Like if you think about a gift that's been uniquely meaningful that you've received, it may have been something that you were hoping for, but maybe more likely something that you didn't know you wanted, that you received and was personal and specific for you. And you think that the only way that someone would have known to give this to you is if that person loved you intensely. And that can be done on a personal level, but it can be done on a broader level too, as we need love in our families to exist. We need love in our neighborhoods to exist. And we need love in our cities and in the broader polities to exist, because our interactions have to be mediated by that. It can't be mediated by only rules, because there are exceptions to almost all rules. And so to mediate those differences, when you have a disagreement with your spouse, with your neighbor, you need to care about each other, and you need to express that you care about each other so that each one knows, we may disagree about this, but I know that he cares for me. Mm-hmm. And so I view my role as an artist is to help engender that feeling on a larger scale than what you can do giving a gift to a friend or to a family member.
That kind of makes sense, because like bringing up this book for a reason. Like, you gave me this book, I didn't know you wrote this book, but it made me feel a certain way. But when I opened it, I noticed you signed it, and I was like, oh, this is really nice.
Yes,
you put my name in there, so I understand. Like, and then when you said that you want to do that through music, how I felt when you did that for me, but at a mass scale, that kind of makes sense. So is that what that quote, kind of the under meaning of that, your favorite quote?
Yes. Yes, because as musicians and artists don't often have to think about why we're doing what we do. We like doing it. And then for some reason, sometimes other people like us to do it as well. And so we think, cool, I'll do more of what you like. I'll keep making music in the way that you respond to it. But I wasn't coming at music in a way of, I want to see what other people want. It was more of a dialogue of, I can see what you think you want now, but I think that what I'm doing over here for whatever reason, and this may not have been true. It's a two-way street. You have to, it's not like I used to think that I wanted to just decide what I wanted to do and make you care about it. And that taught me a lot of lessons in how to convince people that they should care about something that they don't know about already. But I also had to realize that I needed to go the other way too and see, well, not necessarily what music do you want to hear, but what issues do you care about? What values of life do you care about? And how can I present this music to you in a way that resonates with with what matters to you? So now I've forgotten what question you asked, but that's how I came to arrive at. I needed a way to explain what I was doing, both for myself and for other people, because what I do is not the same from any 1 month to the next necessarily, from any 1 year to the next. This is the first book I've ever written. I wasn't planning to write it until, I thought, well, I know the story of the song needs to be told. Yeah. And I was originally going to do a short documentary, because documentaries were and still are very popular, right. Like F1 and there's now a La Liga documentary, all these Chef's Table and so forth. But then I realized how expensive that would be. And I thought, well, if I write a book, then, and if it's an illustrated book, then I can read the book. It's short enough that I can read it in a concert and then perform it and then sell the book afterward. So I needed a way of understanding why I was doing these varied things, both for myself and so that other people who were following me could also understand and think, okay, well, he's not doing, he's what he's doing changes over time, but it's all motivated by the same mission.
Mm-hmm. So is that what you do in your concerts? Is you tell a story and then play music behind it, or how's that? Take me through a concert.
Generally, yes. So the standard, I have a standard solo piano concert, which is called Classic Meets Cool, and I use stories to connect the music that I'm playing with the audience. So what I'll do is I come out and play the first movement to my dance suite, which is fiery. It's very energetic, and it's unlike what anybody might have heard before in a piano concert. Right. And so people love it. They don't know what it is, and then I tell them my mission statement, and then I say that, no, hold on. Do I tell them my mission statement? Oh, I tell them my tagline that I make music in which classic meets cool.
Right.
And then I say, tonight you're going to hear the current version of what that means. And then I tell them what they just heard, which is an original piano piece. And then they're on board for whatever else I do because they liked that. And so they think, oh, okay, well, I didn't know that this is what this concert was going to be, but I'm on board for it now.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's take a ride.
So I talk about the pieces and about the inspiration for why I learned a piece. And sometimes I might use an example. Like I had a short satirical hip hop phase where, and that informs how I came up with my tagline in the first place. So I'll talk about that. And then I'll talk about the concert tour in Israel that I gave, and then play a couple of pieces that I played on that concert tour.
Oh, so you played in Israel?
Yes.
How was that?
It was wonderful. It was 2012, and I won a competition that sent me there.
Oh, what competition?
So it's called OKI, the Oklahoma Israel Exchange, Young Artist Competition. And I had just been, at the time, I hadn't been terribly ambitious to get accolades before, but after I graduated from the University of Oklahoma, I thought, well, I should go to some famous conservatory like Juilliard or Eastman or one of these schools that if you saw it on my resume, you'd think, wow, he must be good.
Right.
And so I applied to these places, and I was good at the piano, but the thing about these places is that I started getting serious about piano when I was 16, and the people who get into these institutions are often serious about the piano 10 years younger, and they practice 4 hours a day, and then they've learned all the Chopin etudes by the time they're 13, and so I wasn't good enough in the way that those schools were looking for me to be good, and so I didn't get into any of these famous schools, and so I didn't know what to do at the time because I thought I'm not bad at music, but I'm not good at music in the way that these schools want me to be. So I didn't know what to do long term. So this is where satirical hip hop comes in, because I wanted to create something, but I didn't want to worry about where it was going because I just failed in a big picture dream. So I thought, well, let me just do something for fun. And so I started making satirical hip hop because I grew up listening to hip hop. Don't tell my parents. But the older that I got,
what kind of hip hop?
Like Ludacris.
Oh, you listen to Luda?
And Jay-Z. Everybody who's on the radio in 1998, 2000.
Great year.
Yeah. This is a lot of Missy Elliott.
Oh, Missy Elliott. Man, I listen to my favorite. He's not really hip. It's more R&B. I like the Usher.
Oh yeah.
I like the Usher. I like the R&B stuff back in the 90s. Neo.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, D'Angelo.
No,
not so much him.
Neo, N-E-Y-O. I don't know.
Oh yeah. I'm not. I was just adding another artist. I wasn't saying.
Okay. I was like, I don't know.
No, you're right. there is a
I have no idea.
Neo as well.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so I listened to that and it was fun. But the older that I got, the more I thought, what, these guys aren't really extolling virtues that I think are great for, talking about how much money they make, which is, money's fine. I'm not against it. But for that to be the thing that you think the public should know about you or about their exploits with women, et cetera, et cetera. So I thought, I'm going to make music that makes fun of this music. Ooh. And so I made a song called Not That Bad, because they like to talk about how amazing they are. at everything,
Yeah.
especially rap. And so this song was about how I'm just mediocre as a rapper. I'm not the greatest you've ever heard, but I'm not the worst either. So I'm just in the middle. There's 3 minutes of that, so you could tell how that was going to be a banger. And then they like to talk about what they drink in the club: gin and juice, Cavassier. And so I made a song about what my fictitious character likes to drink in the club, which is ice water, because it's good for your health. It's free. And then by the end of the song, there's just a swarm of women who have surrounded me. So that was useful for me because I could still make something, but not worry about where it was going.
Right.
And then, but I started learning how to tell stories that way, because I wanted people. I didn't think it was going to be crazy popular, but I thought that if nobody knows that it exists, then nobody else can even know that they might enjoy it. So I started making blog posts and posting on social media, and there became a small following of people who are intrigued by what I was doing. And then I had the opportunity to compete in this competition that would send its winner to Israel. And my dad had judged the competition before. He didn't judge it when I was in it.
Oh, dang it. I was going to say there's your end.
Yeah. Well, obviously, that would have been frowned upon by everyone involved. But he said, you should enter this. And so I did, and I won it. And so, but I had won it playing the same music that I just gotten rejected to these graduate schools for. So I thought, I don't want to spend the next 18 months preparing this program to play in Israel using music that thousands of other pianists can play better than me. So I used my lessons from satirical hip hop, which was to tell stories, to connect the music with the audience, and selected music that I was particularly good at. So basically American influenced classical music, Gershwin, like Rhapsody in Blue, a couple other composers. And then I started learning jazz pianists, improvisations. I would write down each note from the recording and then learn to play it myself. And that's when I realized, I don't have to fit into a category. I had still thought I need to fit into a category. I need to be a classical pianist or a jazz pianist. But I thought, if I'm telling a good story, then I can play whatever kind of music is good enough to tell a story about. Mm-hmm. And that's when I developed the tagline, classic meets cool. That's not a musical tagline. Neither of those two things is a genre. Classical is, and people often confuse classic for classical, but it's classic meets cool. I like old influences and I like new, and I like combining them in unique ways. So that's really the shortest possible story I can tell about whatever it is that I present.
I think that's good because like music, and this has just been over years of me just kind of, listening to music. It's very important. Especially in our culture, but probably world, and just humans, is because I think it really directs people, like what people are listening to. Mm-hmm. Like I go around, hearing what, kids are, and even myself are listening to, like on TikTok and Instagram. And then, you only hear these little blips of these songs, but then when I go and listen to the full song, I'm like, man, that's not really a good message behind it. Mm-hmm. And then I think about when I was growing up listening to music, and my mom and dad would be like, what are you listening to? And I'm like, I'll be listening to the beat, but I didn't really listen to the under message of it. So I think it's really cool that you are telling a story, but also telling it in a different light that's more of a positive versus all these things that, are kind of negative.
Right. Yes. And, it's common, especially in our culture, to think about, we have a tendency to think that things that mattered can be measured. There's a saying even, now I'm not remembering it exactly, but if it matters, then measure. What is that?
Gosh darn it. Sarah, help.
I'm not exactly sure, but we have this kind of a obsession, you might say, of, well, it may be a dollar amount. What's the bottom line? How much is this going to make me? Or it may be, what's the number of mouths this is going to be? Or what's the number of beds we can provide? Those sort of things. We like to attach numbers to things. And so things like music and beauty you can't attach a number to that. If I were to ask you on a scale of 1 to 10, how much does your wife love you? You might punch me in the face. That might be your response, because why would you for someone to attach a number to how much does my mother love me? Like, how dare you ask me that question?
I see what you're saying.
So, and that's not only true, again, not only true for personal relationships. And so music can be, you can't measure music. You could try to, but you can't effectively measure how much are you moved by a concert, let's say. And so we tend to think, well, we're not sure why it matters. And so we can see that it does because people keep on doing it, but we're just kind of ignore it in our minds. And but music is, as you said, music has been used by people of all cultures, times, and places.
Yeah, very beginning.
Yes,
Very
yes. And in this concert that I just performed, the first half of the program was all music from different peoples across cultures, times, and places that people have used to find hope. And so that's one of my struggles, which is that that can be hard to advertise for that sort of thing. It could be hard to advertise for a gift that I want you to receive that you can't know exactly what it is, because then because part of the gift is that it's surprising.
Right.
And so to get people to pay a ticket price for that is difficult.
Man, I just thought about this, man. They played music before people went to war.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is great. I just never really thought about this. The music has been so important in different aspects across history.
It accompanies every instance of human significance. It accompanies weddings. It accompanies funerals. It accompanies going to war. It accompanies mourning. It accompanies celebration.
Yeah.
You walk in any store and it's on. If you're not listening to this podcast right now, then you're probably listening to music.
I'm putting up music under this whole entire podcast.
Good. Well, all mine is public domain, so you can use any of it you want.
All right. Well, hey, Alex, you hear that? I don't know what camera's on me, but Alex, put music behind this. I'll send them your site.
Excellent.
But yeah, man, I just now thought about that, like how much music has been inputted into since civilization started. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So you were saying some stuff earlier, and I kept on thinking back to Michael Jackson. Like, why do you think Michael Jackson was so profound in music, being almost like probably the most iconic figure in music?
Oh man,
I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not much of a.
Do you listen to Jackson 5 or Michael
yeah?
Jackson?
So I think my very first. I've made a few arrangements of popular tunes.
Okay, that's the reason why I kept on, because I was watching your channel this past week.
Yes.
On YouTube, and I think you had something on YouTube where you covered one of the
Jackson 5.
Okay.
Exactly.
That's where it kept on coming up.
Yeah.
Like, why am I thinking of Michael Jackson?
Well, Motown in general was awesome.
So I used to be a DJ.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I used to DJ weddings and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is I really wasn't really big into music. I mean, I listened to it, but I wasn't.
That's a funny thing for a DJ.
Yeah, I wasn't really into it. But the reason why I got the job is they said I was good on the mic.
Oh, okay.
As an MC.
Yeah.
Of getting people, excited,
right.
Whatever. And so the guy that hired me said, I'll teach you the music part. Like, I just can't teach people to be comfortable on the mic. And so I started doing it, but then I started listening to different genres and generations, because being a wedding DJ, it's not matter what I want to hear. It's
right.
what the crowd wants to hear. So I was listening to all these different types of music and things like that. I really fell in love with Motown and that generation and genre of music. And what I really liked about DJ is being able to change the crowd of just of emotions, of feelings, of all right, I'm starting to understand this crowd. If I play this next song, I think I can get something. And then if I play that song and I don't, I'm like, oh crap.
Yes.
I gotta get out of it.
Recalibrate.
I gotta figure out my next avenue. And then once I get the crowd to a certain level for a certain amount of time, I'm like, all right, I gotta bring it back down. And then I raise it back up. So it's
and you recognize those patterns of because people can't stay in any one place for too long. Right. You can have you need to balance out the sweet with the salty. So
is that what you do, Darren? Is that what you kind of figure into your concerts of having a I don't know, maybe you would call it more of a movie style of bringing emotions to certain points, because I know every movie tries to bring in different aspects of the movie where you're building up to the apex
Mm-hmm.
of the story, going up and down. So you kind of do that during
Yes,
concerts? Yeah.
definitely, and in multiple ways. So that's kind of a fractal pattern. So you see it on the lower level within a tune, even within a phrase, and then you see it on a larger level within the whole concert. You want to have this undulation of rising tension and then the release of that tension. And you think about it not just in terms of what's happening musically, but also in terms of what's happening with the narrative too. You don't want to be too serious for too long. You don't want to be too funny for too long, because it's not us. I really like stand-up comics, and I like learning from them.
I love too, man. I love too.
Well, we can talk more about.
Yeah. I've been listening to a lot of stand-up comedians lately because I think that's probably one of the hardest professions of getting on a stage and keeping people entertained for however so long just off of you talking, but also trying to be funny with it with a whole group of different people that have different views and different.
Yes. But what I realized is that I do some sort of stand-up-y material, but I realized that I can go too far because people are there for music and for a concert. I'm going to put in some narrative and some humor as well, but it can't be too much of that as well. Anyway, so you need to have a balance between humor and gravitas. And so, yes, it's all about, and it's a constant balancing act of, okay, when do I put this in and how so one thing that I like to think about is what I do to start the show. So generally, if it's a concert, then I come in and I just play something, and that sets the tone for what's about to happen next, especially sometimes the first two things that I play. So I might play, like I told you, I might play that original tune that is called Out for Delivery, that 1980s pop tune. But sometimes maybe I've played that place before and I've already done that, then I might start with this very soothing, slow arrangement of a jazz tune called All the Things You Are, and then hit them with something, and then hit them with that Out for Delivery. So you get the two ends of the spectrum of the energy spectrum, and then because that sets the tone for the rest of the concert. Right. So yeah, it's all about, but it's not. I mean, that sort of the way that you approach that is the same sort of thing that you would approach having a dinner party or having any sort of human interaction, even a conversation. You don't start out with the heavy things right away. You start out with light things, and then you go into heavy, and then so it's this pattern of just relating with other people. But it's really interesting to when you have to think about that to have a successful concert, that you think about it a lot.
Man, so so do you just play locally or do you go around?
Actually, more so outside of town.
Oh, okay. So you play more outside. So how do you?
Yes.
Do you have like an agent or something?
I do. I have an agent, and then my agents go to regional, and then there's a national performing arts conference where presenters. So anybody who is responsible for putting on a season of performing artists, performing art. It could be a nonprofit in a town who puts on 6 shows a year, let's say, and one might be a tribute act, and one might be a Christmas show. Often they like to have jazz or classical or a piano, and I can fit in that. So I'm generally not going to places because they already know who I am, because the audience knows who I am. The audience buys a season ticket to this suite of concerts, and then I can fill as one of those performers at a college or a university or in a city. Hopefully, I'm getting to the point where people are knowing who I am and will buy a ticket for my name. But certainly, as it started out, people weren't buying tickets because they knew who I was.
So how do you find an agent? Like, do you just go online, or did your dad
know
somebody?
You can. So what we did is we started going to this arts conference 13 years ago, and we were representing ourselves.
Okay.
And we would get a booth, and then we would talk to presenters. And what happened is that a presenter that we played for, a presenter is the person who hires us, essentially.
Okay.
Whoever is hosting this concert series. A presenter that we played for connected us to an agent. He said, you all should work together. So we signed on to her roster, and we maybe have never made a better decision because it's such a booking shows is onerous. It takes so much time. Sometimes people aren't ready to book right away. So and the timelines for booking these shows can be very long because generally the next season is decided. Seasons are basically a school year, September through May.
Okay.
Different presenters may present 4 concerts. Some may present 40. Just a range. But that's usually when the concerts are. And those are generally decided for the following season by May of that year. So this past May, I got booked for a show a year following that.
Oh.
And these presenters have been eyeing acts for a long time often. And so, and they have to have variety in their season. So they can't have 50% pianists or 50% jazz or whatever it is. And so they have to put together this portfolio of performances that work with each other. So a presenter may like me, but may not have a place for me next season, may not have a place for me the season after that. The longest timeline that I've had so far is 10 years from meeting a presenter to where she booked the show. It was 10 years.
10 years.
So
Holy moly.
it's a wild profession.
So let me get this right. So is it like, so you go to like this trade show and you have a booth?
It is a trade show, yes.
Where's this at?
Different places.
Oh, they have a lot of these trade shows?
Yeah, several.
Okay.
So there's the biggest one is in New York every January. It's called APAP, Association of Performing Arts Professionals.
Is there also like a music licensing called
That's
ASCAP?
ASCAP. Very close. Yeah. And then there's a regional one. The Midwest one is in September in Indianapolis. There are a couple on the West Coast. North Carolina has a great one called Arts Market. So
do you go to all those? Or do you just...
My agents go to all those.
Oh, your agents go to
Yes.
those. Okay.
Sometimes I'll go. And at these trade shows, there will be showcases too. So you'll have 12, 15 minutes to perform.
Do you ever do those still?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's how you get picked up.
Yeah, that's how people see you in person because they can see a video, they can see materials, but they don't know what you're like until they see you on stage.
Okay.
And so,
Man, that's so interesting. It's a trade show. So your agent is in a booth, probably promoting all the artists that she has under her record.
Exactly.
And probably trying to fill their series with all of their acts.
As many as possible, yeah.
Right. So someone will come up and they'll have like CDs or they'll have like a slideshow or something.
They'll probably have a computer where you can see a few clips from different artists. They may have CDs, certainly business cards to follow up with email because, a lot of people don't have CD players anymore. And brochures with different artists. And then they'll say, oh, this artist is playing tonight in whatever, because these are generally in hotels. And so we'll play a showcase in a hotel, ballroom or meeting room. And
that's so interesting.
Yeah.
So that's how it works.
Just like other industries, but it's but it's in its own way because of the nature of the work.
So how many shows realistically can you play a year?
How many is there a market for, or how many can I play? What's my capacity?
What's your capacity?
I
mean, let me structure it a little bit different.
Okay.
How many concerts do you have to play to make a living to just whatever of like?
Yeah. Well, it depends on what else I'm doing because that's the main source of my income, but I also have other revenues that can be brought up as necessary.
Okay.
So, for instance, like all my albums are patron funded. So this past year, for a couple of years coming out of COVID, I had 30, 35 shows a year, that's very healthy
That's a lot.
for me. And I could make a comfortable living that way. But then this past year, it fell to about 12. And I thought, and now I had a couple big tours over those 2 years that helped to bump that number up. And so I just thought, oh, sweet, this is how it's going to be forever now. But it was not. So this past year, it worked out because I just released a new album last month. And so I could work on that album, including fundraising for it, which paid me to do all the administrative work, to do the marketing work and the video work and so forth that was required for it. So I would like to have, this next season I think it's between 20 and 25, and that's all right. I'd like to have more like 30 or so.
Okay, 30 is a sweet number.
Yeah.
30. But that's like are you on the road 30 weeks out of the year?
Not 30 weeks. So ideally, those are booked in at least small tours. So maybe I have 2 or 3 shows on a route, and then I'll come back.
Oh, okay.
I'm not now. It's nice because I'm not like a band. A band has a back line with drums and keyboards and such. They have to drive a van. They have to get all their equipment to a place. I don't have to take any equipment. I take merch, and they have the piano. So I can do 1-outs or.
Have you ever rolled up to an event and their piano sucked?
Yes.
What do you do?
Generally not that bad, but sometimes it's not good. You just play the show anyway. The show must go on, as they say.
Oh man, because a couple of my friends have pianos, and I didn't realize how much goes into it of making sure it stays in tune.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's cost and efforts to keep it piano in good condition.
Yes.
And if you don't do that, then strings and other stuff doesn't sound right.
Right.
Which I never knew. Like I would play a piano, I'd be like, "Oh, it sounds good to me." And
yeah.
Like my buddy that plays piano is like, "Yeah, that's out of tune." Man.
Right.
Like,
Well, and there's the action of the keys too. You expect each key to behave. You expect to be able to predict how it's going to behave. But when they vary, so one key, if it's not in regulation, which is what you call that concept, if it's not in regulation, then you can get dramatically different responses from one key to the next, which is very difficult because you think, okay, I want this next note to sound loud or soft or whatever it is. But if you miscalculate how much pressure you need to apply, then you're going to be constantly frustrated because you're playing a whole piece with all these notes and none of them is responding the way you think it will.
So it matters how hard you push a key?
Definitely.
I didn't even know what the foot pedals meant until recently.
Yeah. A lot of people don't.
Doesn't that hold the note?
One of them does.
Oh,
That's the main was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's so interesting. That is so interesting.
Yeah.
So you have how many shows this year?
20 or so.
20. So you make more money correct me, just say Steven shut up. Do you make more money from shows or from albums? Or
shows. Goodness.
Shows? Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
Albums are kind of like what's the reason that speakers write books. If you write a book, then you get higher fees for speaking and you get more speaking engagements. So that's kind of what you have to create the album, but I don't expect to make any money off of albums. It's just
that's why artists make albums, like
that's why I
Taylor
do.
Swift, or
well, she actually makes money.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but there's a certain threshold where you're not making, and most artists are under the threshold of being able to actually make a profit on.
Yeah, because I heard Taylor Swift just went through this whole thing about her album or her music getting sold to some other thing, and she re-recorded all of her music.
Oh yes.
And so since you're doing it all self-funded, you don't have to worry about the actual label.
Right, somebody else owning it.
Yeah.
Right.
Which kind of just blows my mind. Is it camera turned on? Okay. Oh, we're good. But so with the album, you own the music, right?
Yes. Well, actually, everyone owns it because I release it in the public domain.
Oh.
And that's part of why patrons would want to support it, because if I view this as an offering of love to the Tulsa community, to the world, then I want you to be able to enjoy it in whatever way that you would like. If I hold on to it with the intellectual property, then I'm not really giving it to you. I'm kind of lending it to you. But
so that's why you said I could use it.
Yes.
That is awesome.
So because if I think about if my goal is to discover and present beauty, then I feel the obligation to actually live up to that commitment.
So it's not copyrighted or anything.
Correct.
That is cool.
Yes.
Man, that's why I don't like sometimes uploading to YouTube. It's a frustrating thing because
yes.
I always get copyrighted or something.
Yes.
And I'm I got this on a non-copyrighted website.
Oh, even then.
Yeah, even then sometimes.
Yes.
I have to basically.
You dispute it. Yeah.
I can get back on. But man, that's really cool that you just let anybody use it.
Yes, and I hope that more and more people will.
Yeah.
I view it as a very long-term strategy because it's free advertising, but I don't know when it's going to actually pay off, because it could pay off. Like we still listen to Bach, for instance,
right?
Hundreds of years after he wrote that music, Mozart, Beethoven, etc. So I hope that me offering this to the world, that A, that it's good enough that they want to listen to it and use it, and B, that it can redound to my benefit, at least somewhat, before I die. But you never know.
Because I mean, 'cause when Bach and Mozart, when they wrote music, they didn't have all these albums and things like that. So
Right.
like, who makes money off of their music?
Well, they were funded by. So Bach was a church musician, I believe. I'm not terribly knowledgeable, and they also had patrons. So Beethoven, people who were wealthy would patronize him, and like many artists, it was often royalty would patronize artists to create work.
Okay.
Haydn was that way, and so now it's a similar model. You don't have to be abundantly wealthy. With Kickstarter and such, you can have $10, and that still helps too. But that's what my model is for
That's the way to do it.
offering work.
Because because when you get with and this is just, I'm not in the music industry, so I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm going to say it anyway. But it seems like with with like these big music companies that they kind of get these artists and then they tell them what to do.
Yes.
And I'm like, dude, they're the artists.
Right.
Let them do what they're
Right.
to do. Like, don't try to keep them in this and try to get this image of what you guys want.
Well,
I think sell.
It goes back exactly selling. That's what it goes back to.
Yeah, I guess it's
Because and it's not like I'm not against money, and I'm not against buying or selling things, but music it depends on how you see it. Is it a commodity or is it an offering? And these record companies need it to be a commodity because they need to sell it.
Right.
I don't want my music to be that way, and so that's why the models look different. Now I have plenty to learn from them, plenty to use in terms of how to present the music in a way that gets people more intrigued more easily and that sort of thing. But fundamentally, they're different. We have different goals, and so that's a big reason for the difference you see between how we present.
That's so interesting. So when's your next show here in Tulsa?
I wish I could tell you because I just had one at Cain's for my album release.
I know Sarah didn't invite me.
Doggone it. Yeah, it was awesome. It was. So I don't know when I'm going to have. I'll probably have a show at Lowdown, which is an outstanding listening room in Tulsa, downtown Tulsa, and I'll be sure to let you know about it.
Please do, because
when that happens. Okay.
Please.
Hopefully I could. I'll plan to do that in the next few months. They like to have me there whenever I'm free and have enough new music to play. But what people can do right now, I just released a new record called There Arises. All streaming platforms. It's called There Arises Light in the Darkness.
That's on Spotify?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Spotify, Apple Music. It's for violin, cello, and piano. And it was, I was commissioned. So this is when people hire you to write music. It's one of the first instances of that. And I was commissioned to write a piece commemorating the 1921 British Massacre. The centennial was 3 years ago, as we all know. And so I wasn't sure how to manage this request because there are, what I try to do is, like I said before, is to encourage us to care about each other. Right. And there are lots of opinions about what should be done or not done in response to the massacre. And I didn't want to take a position or for this music to take a position on any of it. My position is for any of this to be successful, doing something or not doing something, we have to love each other. Right. So how can I create music that promotes that message? Right. And so I read an eyewitness account who said that when she and her daughter, this woman named Mary E. Jones Parrish, realized what was happening, she read a chapter or two of the Psalms of David with her daughter and prayed that God would give her courage to stand through it all. And so this piece imagines that she read chapters 88 and 89 of the Psalms, which tell this arc from struggle to discovery to triumph. So There Arises Light in the Darkness it's one work that has three parts to it. And the first part is called My Soul is Full of Troubles. That's based off of Psalm 88:3, and that's the mourning, the grief. The second part is the prayer and meditation of Unto Thee Have I Cried. That's the title of the second part. And then the last part is the victory, the triumph. It's called The Heavens Shall Praise Thy Wonders.
And that's your newest album?
That's the newest album. And so each movement, each part is titled after those three verses. And you can hopefully hear that story over the course of this 40-minute piece. piece for violin, cello, and piano.
Dude, I'm going to check that out. And then do you have social media?
Yes. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook,
And what's your
TikTok,
handle?
Barron CP.
Okay, Barron
Yes. On Instagram and everything but Facebook. Just search for my name on Facebook, Barron Ryan with 2 R's.
Okay, Barron Ryan, 2 R's. And website?
Yes, BarronRyan.com.
BarronRyan.com. Well, Barron, thank you so much for coming on. And if you want to listen to some other episodes of the People of Oklahoma podcast, you can check me out on Spotify or YouTube. The People of Oklahoma podcast. Barron, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me.